I'm back to do some fall themed birthday cards. So they're kind of more fall than birthday, but I'll put a birthday sentiment on the inside. So I am also trying a new product, which are these guys. They're chalk suede cards. So they're designed to basically be waxed paper, essentially. Um, their feel is very much like waxed paper. The packaging, not so great. But the actual product looks good. Like usually chalk packages their stuff like in nice boxes, but not so much this time. But hopefully that'll be fixed at a future time. Because like just in that kind of a package, it would be easy for the corners to get busted. I'm comparing that to my normal standard Canson Excel recycled Bristol paper, which is basically a coated paper, mostly used for markers. Um, and I've had no real issues. I have been pretty careful about making sure that like my transfer isn't super sticky because these are all new and they would be fairly sticky to deal with. Uh, so basically, what I want to grab is a nice sort of color that's harvesty, perhaps harvest, in fact. So I think this is harvest. Yeah, so this is Shimmer Harvest, so I'll be using this for chalking the two sentiments. And then I've got some lunar paste to kind of do something a little more fun with the leaves here. So let me get these stuck down. And so this was a panel left over from last week, so I just basically cut it down. And these guys are brand new. They're not a card product, really. They're designed more for working on some of the new tiered trays that came out this fall, and now there are winter versions of the tiered tray, which I'm actually going to not use it. I don't actually own the tray because I don't know, it's a little kitschy for me, but I'm actually going to use the cutouts to do kind of an interesting display for work. I'm going to use some of the box frames and do things on both sides. So I got this pretty fuzzy, and hopefully there's not cat hair on it. But anyway, as they say, I will position this and see how I like it. Yeah, you can see there is some pet hair happening here. There we go. Well, almost all of it. Life with cats and dogs, am I right? Anyway, I want to mostly get this in the center. Because what I'm planning to do is, and the nice thing here is I can just sort of use this grid to kind of line me up. And I think this, oops, this is really not sticky now, so. I may have overdone it slightly. But anyway, this will, it should be, I mean, if you think of like a stencil with pixie spray, that's kind of what we're going for in terms of stickiness. This one I will. And I mean, if you do get fuzz or dust or hair on these things, like they clean off with water just fine. I'm going to mostly get that square. What else should I mention? It doesn't come into play with this transfer much, but with this little guy, anything that's white is going to go through the transfer. As you can kind of, I guess you can't, this is kind of hard to see on camera, but like these, the bottom line there is actually going to be a line that would potentially bleed through. So that one we want to be a little careful with. So we're pretty much good in both cases. I'm just looking if I see anything looks too weird. Of course, in either case, if it doesn't work out, it's easy enough to redo. The actual inside of these cards is not coated, so like writing should be fine, but I'm want to use some pattern paper later because I have a new autumn pack that should be pretty cool. And I'm going to be really curious to see how gluing to the chalk surface is. But anyway, let us get underway here. I think this is brand new, but I can probably just use the stuff that's on the lid, I would guess. Yeah. You will likely be fine with just what remains on the lid. Grab a little squeegee for this guy. Also, I'm going to grab a alcohol-free baby wipe for my hands because the shimmery stuff has a tendency to get all over everything, and not so much when it's dry, but when it's wet, I try to be somewhat careful. So I'm just going to grab a little itty bit here. And on the right, the one with the larger sentiment is the Bristol paper, and the one with the smaller sentiment and the leaves is the new chalk suede. Going to scrape off any excess. This is looking pretty good. That's just because if you left excess on top when you actually peel the transfer off, it would bleed through to the butt. It would go through, and then you'd basically have kind of a weird lump. I think I can just go directly here because this really shouldn't take much. I want to make sure I get the... You can see how shimmery it is, at least in real life. Sometimes the shimmeriness doesn't totally come through on camera, but I think these two are pretty good. So I'm going to... I probably don't even need a normally I'd use a pokey tool to kind of lift this up. But considering this is... Yeah. So this looks great. The G is a little wonky, but I'm fine with that, honestly. And this one I'm just going to... Well, there's one little piece here. There we go. Unfortunately, the G was at the bottom, so it was a little hard to see until I was done. Check my fingers, and then we should be able to peel up. Autumn Vibes. Two are good. Since I'm going to just clean these off a little with a baby wipe because I'm gonna do a little work on the lunar paste. And while the chalk paste is totally water soluble, and you could let the whole thing dry and then clean it just fine. The lunar paste has some acrylic base or something like that in there, so with the lunar paste I'm going to want to be a little more careful, and I'm going to basically wind up using my hands to sort of use a couple of fingers to kind of just dab this on. I'm going to sort of focus on... And this stuff dries pretty fast, and I'm basically using red and a little gold and a little orange. Actually, I may not need orange at all. I may just use a little more gold here. I'm liking the gold. The gold in this particular line is pretty awesome. in my opinion. I think a new orange came out recently. This is Traffic Cone, which is more of a muted orange, but I don't know. I'm kind of liking the gold with the Shimmer Harvest, so I'm just going to leave this as is. I'm going to clean off the tip of my finger quickly before I try and get this off. And then I'm going to go wash everything and be back. I may have hit that line a little bit, which would be unfortunate, but it is what it is. Nope, that looks pretty good. So we have our little pop of autumn wishes. So these came out great. I am excited. I'm going to go wash these transfers and get the remainder of the paste on, and I will let these dry. Probably by the time I'm back, we can start working on the rest of it. And I'm back, so those are clean, and they're just drying upside down in the bathroom with sticky side up. So, what I wanted to do was sort of find just open this up with a pokey tool, because they're good for lots of things. Find a good piece of pattern paper, because these are looking, I mean, just with the sentiments, they look a little bit plain. I could have ink blended or done something else out. But I got some new Caspin Pooler paper and was really interested in seeing what might work here. So gold goes with everything pretty much. I was kind of drawn to this plaid because I think that really ties things in. These are 4 inches essentially. Yeah, 4 inches, yeah. So you could do, I don't know, 3 3/4 and then as wide as you want. I think this would be good. It looks like we have about 1 inch on either side. The sentiment is slightly shifted this way, but hey, that's fine. So this one I liked a lot. There are a few other ones. There's a coffee one. There is an actual pumpkin one, which might work well here. Apples, just polka dots, and then just sort of like zigzag. So I think what I'm going to do is on the Autumn Wishes card, I'm going to use that one, and I really like this pumpkin paper here. We have more room, like if you look at this card, we have more room to work with. We have probably 1 inch and a 1.5 is a bit much. Inch is good here, and then yeah, I think 1 inch on either side in both cases. This started out smaller. This is 3 3/4, so we'd want to cut it 3.5 by whatever. This pattern, it doesn't. There's not really an up or a down, but this one is going to matter a little bit. So what we can also do is say, how close to dry is this? And this is almost completely dry. I will move it back a little bit and be slightly careful. Oh, and my friend Kim made these really cool, I think it was Kim's company made these really cool cats and bats, so I don't know, I might have, to sort of offset the fact that it seems like the leaves are a little shifted to the right, I might put in a little cat next to them. Particularly like this one. I don't know if I would use, I don't think I'll use anything on this. I would like to use the bats, but I'm trying to keep these a little less Halloween-y, essentially. So I am going to grab my, what's becoming a very well-loved tonic trimmer. And basically I want, these are 6 inches, so basically I want 5 inches. Actually, this is not the correct orientation. So yes, this one, since I'm going to be, I want it to, going to cut it to 5 inches and then 4 inches. So we have 2 2 1-inch strips. And Catherine Pooler's paper is single-sided, which I kind of like, because then you don't have to, like, pick and choose. And then I want to cut these guys to whatever I said before, 3.5 inches, I think. If not, we have extra paper. Oop, that moved a little bit. So let me just square that up. So that, I think, I like how that looks. They came out because we could always have done some ink blending or something a little bit. So how do we feel about this? I like the bottom quite a bit. I feel like the top feels a little bit smushed in, so I think I just need to see if I can't just shave ever so slightly off. Just sort of shave off the edge a little. Yeah, that feels a little better to me. Okay. And we have some extra pieces to do stuff with if we wanted to. Then I'll just cut a 1-inch strip here. I think what I'll do, since this is, I'm going to cut this to 3 inches and see how I feel about it, because that would give us like 2 equal rectangles. I'm thinking it would be really neat to like do them kind of offset, like put one here and one here to sort of make this a little more interesting. I do like that, so I think I'm going to run with that. So here you could use tape or glue. I'm just going to use tape roller because I got it handy. And I am a fan. Just double check if which one of these, it's hard to tell which one of these is actually a little shorter, but hey. Just sort of a little less. I try and like even up the top a little bit just to sort of make sure that it's centered. Yeah, that's better. This is popping up a little bit at the corner, so what you can do is just put a little bit of adhesive under there and hold it for a few seconds and it should glue down. Maybe it needs a little more time than that, but I can do the bottom here while we're doing that. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm a fan. We will get a little more color into this particular card because we can pick whatever color card base. This one, since it's already a card base, we sort of get what we get. But I am very curious as to how well adhesives will stick. I did get a little adhesive on my mat, just as an FYI. Like any kind of general purpose cleaner can take that off. I'm going to, I like kind of that sort of spacing. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it, but yeah, that's definitely down, so I don't think there's any issue with using adhesives on these cards, which is good news. The top here. Whoa. Don't need to stick myself down in the process. This guy is done, so I am going to grab this guy. I like that. And let's see what kind of card base. I'm thinking in autumny color, so gold, orange, something like that might be nice. We have sort of peach, another peach. I don't actually have a orange, but I do have sort of a sunflower yellow. I think that would be good because this is sort of a brownish card, but I think that I think it would look really good on yellow. So, and this is totally dry now, and I didn't even use a heat tool on it. But I think this looks pretty nice added on yellow. I think I will do that since we have the glue out. I will just use a little bit of glue. And generally with glue, you want to make sure you kind of hit the outsides and then just do a little bit in the center. Like the center isn't that likely to pull up. And with glue, you do have a little more like working time, I would say. Like with other adhesives, it's kind of like once it's down, it's down. But this will dry pretty quickly. I mean, the glue we did a few minutes ago is dried. So I'm just going to press that off. And, you know, we basically just made 2 cards in, I don't know, 20 minutes maybe? Something like that. Which is awesome. Which I really think is sort of the strength of these transfers. I mean, it's not that you can't get the same results with other stuff. It's just that, like, the amount of mess and cleanup is much, much nicer. So, here are the 2 cards we made today, and hope you have a great rest of your Saturday.